Good evening. It is Monday, May 8th. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education. At this time, we'll go to call to order. And the roll call. Mr. Carney?
Here.
Mr. Goodman?
Here.
Ms. Murphy?
Here.
Mr. Powell?
Here.
Ms. Reed?
Here.
Ms. Wells?
Here.
And Judy Price. Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
All.
Dr. Rose? District Mission.
Yes, it's to prepare every student for success in every classroom, every day.
Item 1-4, adoption of the agenda.
Madam President, I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Powell, second by Ms. Murphy to adopt the agenda as presented. All those in favor? 6-1, thank you. Okay, item B, building report, Ms. Murphy.
It's you.
You're up.
You're
Let's
up.
have it.
It's time for Teddy to be the star of the show.
Well, I feel very honored to be the first on the agenda, and thank you so much for having Ms. Cross and I up, and Theodore Peddlesworth from Henry Leavenworth to give you our building report. First of all, I would like to extend a huge shout out to the staff and students and the families of Henry Leavenworth for a wonderful year so far. With it being May, it has been a wonderful year, and we have all worked very hard, but especially our teaching staff, and with it being Teacher Appreciation, I would like to give them a huge shout out and a thank you for all the work of their head, their heart, and their hands to make this year a wonderful one. Secondly, I would like to thank the Board of Education, Matt Bedke and the facilities, as well as the adjacent neighborhood to Henry Leavenworth, to working with us collaboratively to solve the traffic flow issues. Those have seemed to have resolved now that we have proceeded with the additional parking and addressing those traffic flow issues. So thank you to everyone and such. I would also like to then bring everyone's attention to some of the things that we have been working on at Henry Leavenworth this year. One of the things I'd like to highlight is in addressing our social emotional needs of our students starting out the day. We start each day with a morning assembly, and we go into the classroom from the morning assembly to some task tests where the students then get a soft start to interact and get acquainted and have some time with their peers to socialize over a bin of manipulatives or puzzles, games, and things like that for a soft start. We have seen an improvement in our early morning behavior type calls and things like that with instituting the morning bins. And of course, we also use a morning meeting shortly after that where the students congregate on the rug in a circle using the new Character Strong SEL curriculum. And we try to weave that throughout their day through the counselor, the social worker, and then the things that we do at Henry. We also, if you haven't noticed, our furry friend, Mr. Peddlesworth, Teddy is an inspiration for the students. We use him as a driving force. If you'll notice on the presentation, students read with Teddy. Students use his power of influence for finding him doing good things and caught in the act around those monthly character traits, as well as just that influence of helping de-escalate and get students back to class in a regulated state. So he has been instrumental with students, staff, and all that come through the office of Henry get acquainted with him. So that starts us on our day. We work very hard to help students through design thinking and service learning to find that zone of optimal confusion is what we would like to encourage our students to do through hands-on learning projects so that they're engaged in what they're learning, and we feel that doing things that engage the students actually bring us farther along in their education, and they astound us with the things, the solutions to problems, and how they can use exploration and creativity to learn about things that really interest them, so they become very passionate, mildly to extreme, yes, we know, but we want to continue that movement and the work that we're doing in that direction. So not to take too much more of your time, this is kind of a snapshot of all of the wonderful things we have going on at Henry, but I want to highlight some big pieces. We've talked about literacy. We infuse guided reading and find literacy connections to all 5 components of our literacy instruction. And that's the hard work that the teachers are doing to engage the kids in their head, that head to heart to hands piece. And then we try to get them to play those things out through design thinking and such across the curriculum. But more importantly, we'd like to highlight that we had many successful family engagements this year. On top of everything that everybody has going on, we have had an outpouring of support from the community as well as the families of our students. We had our Title I family night. We've had 2 literacy nights at all grade levels. So we had one in the fall and one in the spring, and all 4 grade levels had a family literacy night where students got to show parents how they can tutor them at home and do exercises and things with them. We had a very successful family safety at school night and a school carnival. And in partnership with our PTO, we were able to bring in Touch a Truck for our safety night. And we had an outpouring of different community servants come in and set up a truck and talk about and share with our students what they can expect to see from their type of, from our police to the EMTs to the ROVs and things like that. So that was really successful. But what I'd like to highlight from that night was the fact that we gave away over 30 car seats to students or children and infants. We have been working for 2 years now as a car seat safety inspection. It was a family request that we do this, and it is fully up and running. And we have been working in partnership with the Leavenworth County Health Department and getting this car seat inspections done at all of our family engagement activities that we can offer those types of services. So again, that service learning and design thinking kind of bring those things to life for our students, and they come out in different ways and partnerships within our community. So I'm real proud of the fact that we were able to distribute 30 car seats and do safety seat inspections for numerous other families and students in our community. So that brings us to the close. We're getting ready for our end of the year activities. And so I want to highlight that 1st grade is planting seeds. They're doing some gardening. 2nd grade is hatching chicks. And in partnership with the county extension office, we have little chicks running around 2nd grade. 4th grade is wrapping it up with their wax museum and a field trip to the Mahaffey farm after their hard work on their social studies, history, governments, and social studies assessment. 3rd grade is having their economy day, and I kind of got out of order there, I'm sorry. And then we are wrapping up with our whole school activities like our field day and awards assembly for all of our hard work our students have put forth, and we want to recognize them for. And last but not least, working with our high school graduates are going to come back and do the first Fist Bump Friday, where our students get to cheer our seniors on to their next step into their future. So that is all for I have for you this evening, or we have for you this evening. Do you have any questions for us? All right. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Item 4, schedule patron input. Okay, so this time you're,
Recognitions.
Recognitions?
I'm sorry, item 3, I've got on my notes, we're deferring it to the June meeting because not all the attendees can be present. Sorry. So item 4, schedule patron input. We are pleased you have joined us tonight to celebrate student and staff achievement, hear informational presentations and reports, and the consideration of policy decisions and administrative recommendations specific to the Leavenworth Unified School District. We set aside time at each regularly scheduled board meeting to hear from the public. Comments should be directed toward board policies or the procedures our administrators establish to carry out those policies, as opposed to individual complaints to investigate and resolve. Please understand that while board members will listen to and carefully consider all your comments, board members will not immediately respond to questions either verbally or through gestures, for example, raising hands in response to questions, nor will they engage in dialogue or answer and response during the patron input time this evening. This is not an appropriate time or place for patrons to make comments of a personal nature about any district employee or student by name. Persons making comments which violate privacy rights of district employees or students will be asked to terminate their remarks. If speakers have concerns specific to an individual student or staff member, please make an appointment with superintendent. Those concerns will be documented and shared with the board. Each patron is reminded they have 3 minutes to speak and will be given notice when 15 seconds remain. If a group is in attendance with the same interest, we ask the spokesperson be appointed to deliver the group's message. As a unified board committed to desired outcomes for our school community, we ask that comments not be directed to an individual board member, but rather addressed to the board as a whole. So thank you for taking time to discuss district business and policies with the board. Our first patron this evening is Wendy Feverly.
Thank you for having me. I wanted to come and address some concerns I have with the school policies and what's going on in our school. March of last year, I posted pictures from a book found at the Leavenworth High School on Facebook. My Facebook account was suspended for posting sexually explicit material and material depicting sexual violence. That's real concerning to me. Then when I started looking into some other things, I made a comment about just merely pornography being in our schools. I was doxxed. I had flyers put in the mailboxes of my neighbors, courtesy of LGBTQIA, which I want to thank them for because it got me conversing with my neighbors a lot more than what I had. A lot of people reached out to me on Facebook. And what I've learned was there is a great lack of education going on here at the school board, not only with the children, but with a lot of parents. Nobody I spoke with has ever read this book, not one person. I spoke to over 25 people. The Dumbing Down of America goes through policies, the actual educational policies from the 1930s to 1999. You might want to take a look at what those policies, such as core curriculum, are. I had a teacher message me on Messenger and had no clue when that was established and by whom and who was funding it. Kind of shut that conversation down with that teacher. If you don't even know that the same people who are funding a lot of these policies are funding a lot of policies around the world. The founder of the World Core Curriculum was Robert Mueller, known as the father of global education. He was a Secretary General of the UN. He and Bill Gates in 1999 established a big funding push for those core curriculums. And in 2017, Bill Gates admitted that the core curriculum alone wasn't working. So he donated
15 seconds remaining.
more than $8 million to push the social emotional learning. Now, with that, I would like to encourage everyone, not just
Mr. Early, your time
parents.
is up.
Thank you. Read the book.
Ms. Levine?
She's not here.
I don't see Nancy Levine.
What
What
was
was
her
the-
name?
what-
Nancy Levine?
I don't see a
I
Nancy
can't,
Levine.
I can't hear the
Yeah,
name.
your mic. Nancy Levine? There, we'll move it closer. All right, Sharon Miller?
Good evening. My name is Sharon Miller, and I am not related to the aforementioned individual who shares the same last name that I do. The focus, I'm also a librarian in the district. I'm the high school librarian. The focus of many recent meetings revolved around the content of materials in classrooms, libraries, even what is hanging on our school walls. There are people in the community and on this board who would like greater control of the content that some of these materials may contain. Changes the policies that we have in place will result in a lot more work for a lot more people. There are measures in place to handle challenges, and in my time in this district, 21 years, they have been largely unnecessary. Arguments regarding what is age appropriate, suitable for, too graphic will never be settled. Who gets to decide what's too graphic? What is offensive to one may not be offensive to another. For example, this is a good book. Some may say the good book. Yet the content of this book contains sexually explicit language, infanticide, genocide, rape, incest, violence, and more. There seem to be few attempts to pull this book from the library, nor would I support any efforts for them to be pulled. If strict district measures are put in place to prevent questionable content from reaching our students, then all books, even this one, must fall under far greater scrutiny, not just the books that some people don't agree with. Is this really what we want for our kids? At the last meeting, a board member suggested that micromanaging was a form of bullying, and educators wish to not be micromanaged. We wish to be supported in our efforts to give our best to our students every day, because that is what we are doing. Thank you.
Brandy Bond?
Good evening. My name is Brandy Bond. I live on a high street in Leavenworth, Kansas. I have been a parent in the district for 18 years. My youngest son currently attends Leavenworth High School, and I have been an employee for the district for 7 years. I am the library aide at David Brewer. My concerns tonight are over board policy IF. I agree that we should absolutely have a collection development policy, but it should be something that is created with the library staff, especially our 2 certified librarians who have the degrees and are the subject matter experts. A policy that would benefit and represent all of our pioneer families, not one that would exclude a large number of them. It seems that some board members are confusing sexualization with representation. To remove books with LGBTQ content out of any library is a direct slap in the face of our LGBTQ families, with an exclusive move to create even more divide in our politically charged climate. To censor any specific content from our libraries, you are removing your support from those groups represented by that content. You are saying that they are less valuable and this population isn't worth representing. How would you feel if we eliminated books with heterosexual content? This is a move that implies they aren't worth representing. We should all be ashamed of ourselves if we tried to remove any content. If we are going to remove books that represent our LGBTQ families, then we should also remove books that represent families that have a mom and a dad, books that have only one parent, books that represent grandparents raising their grandchildren, or books that represent divorced families. So with this move, I can foresee we are moving towards a very dangerous mindset. We teach students that the library is a place for everyone, and our school should be a safe and accepting community, a welcoming place, a place that they should love, a place that represents them and what they want to read. This policy doesn't represent our students, and it for sure sends the wrong message to our families. Please consider all of our families. This policy needs more work and should not be voted on tonight. Please consider keeping it on the agenda for further discussion.
Deanna Rice.
Good evening. My name is Deanna Wright. I am not a resident of Leavenworth, but I most recently was the librarian at David Brewer Elementary. I taught the lesson that has been discussed here over the last few board meetings. I'm here to help set the record straight. I taught the library lesson in September of last year based upon Kansas and American Association of School Library standards. I showed the ALA poster, Libraries Are for Everyone, and I discussed with students how libraries build community and support every person, every learner. We discussed the idea that books should be mirrors, windows, and sliding doors. I use my own family as an example. My parents were divorced when I was a child, and I wanted to read books that were similar to my experience. I also explained that books were there to support each and every one of us, and that when we look around, we should see books that look like us and that look like everyone else. When we read about others, we build the skill of empathy, and we have the opportunity to walk in another's shoes. Students in grades 3 and 4 drew wonderful examples of themselves and others, checking out books, reading and finding books, and being accepting. A board member and a representative toured our library in February, 5 months after this lesson. While I was teaching and interacting with the students, one time during their visit did they stop and ask me what the purpose of the lesson was. A board member has stated, in response to a local news network story about this lesson, the pictures were depicted, and I quote, of gay children holding hands, pride flags, and furries. I'm curious, what do gay children look like? Is this common in response to a drawing of students holding hands? Have you never seen kids grab hands on the playground and skip off to play? The lion depicted in a drawing is not a furry, but yet it was a student's representation of the book that I had just read, The Library Lion. At no time did I teach an overly sexualized lesson, as this board member has claimed. Only the board member and the representative have made this claim, pushing the gross narrative of sexualization of students. It has been mentioned that schools need to get back to reading, writing, and arithmetic, yet this board is going to be discussing and attempting to push through a policy that will restrict students' access to library books for reading. The new policy that some members are recommending will require librarians to submit their purchase list and wait through many steps for approval. What is the goal of this policy? Is it to limit student books based on the guise or under the guise of parental rights? What about parents who want their children to read a diverse selection of books? Will their rights be
15
honored?
seconds remaining.
I urge you to think carefully about this proposal. If you claim students need to get back to reading, don't limit their access to books. Thank you.
Eric Price.
Good evening. My name is Eric Price. I live in North Leavenworth, and I have a junior in the high school. Let me start by thanking all of our teachers, since it is Teacher Appreciation Week. 1 week is not nearly enough to thank the teachers for all they do every day for our students. I felt I had to come and address the board this month since book banning appears to be on the agenda again. I hope when you address this topic, you're going to be very specific as to why the policy in place since 2009 is suddenly not adequate, or why our other policies that deal with parental concerns aren't enough to deal with any issues related to books. More importantly, I'm keen to hear the language you use to implement changes to the policy. What kind of wholesale limits will suddenly be imposed rather than allowing our media center professionals to do their jobs, have schools deal with issues as they arise, and make decisions on any single book based on its own merits? Language is the key aspect here. It has been an interesting rhetorical trick lately to use language to attack what some of us here are defending and make it seem indefensible. I mean, who can argue for sexualizing children? But that isn't really what it's about. After all, the American Psychological Association's definition of sexualization doesn't say anything about rainbows or the acknowledgement of the existence of queer people as being sexualization. It does address keeping age-inappropriate material out of the hands of youngsters, and no one is really arguing against that. But a book that talks about Billy's two moms isn't inherently sexualizing any more than a book that describes Susie's heterosexual parents is. And middle schoolers expressing support for LGBTQ people isn't either. Besides, when your children see loving relationships, do you think that sex is the first thing that comes to mind? Is that how you describe Cinderella's longing for Prince Charming to them? Is that what you thought as a middle schooler when you looked at your parents? Or when you looked at your friends' parents? When questions arose in our home, we didn't explain queer people in sexual terms, but rather in terms of love and endearment, like every other romantic love that kids are exposed to on Disney or in a book. But in Florida, under rules recently adopted by a school board, the board banned a book about home construction around the world because one photo showed a mud hut in Africa that had a small child standing in front of it with exposed buttocks for nudity. Is that what's in store for us here? Vague language that leads to senseless challenges and anything
15
and
seconds
everything?
remaining.
If you want to protect kids, have thoughtful, meaningful discussions about how to best limit access to library materials based on age and in consultation with the experts that are employed by the district. Thank you.
Chase Spears.
Good evening. Thanks for letting me come tonight. I come before you tonight on the topic of institutionalism. Institutions exist to continue existing. They exist to protect themselves and to present themselves in the most convenient light possible. When it comes to governmental institutions, they have a proven tendency to punch above their rightful regulatory class and to feed off the public dole while shielding themselves from public accountability. Unfortunately, it seems the school district is no exception to that rule. Last month's meeting, the superintendent made it clear that he is willing to violate norms to allegedly prevent disruption, which he blames on a member of the board. This, sir, is the language of an institutionalist, along with terms like trust the experts, defer to the credentialed class. Institutions covet an uninterrupted continuation of adopted norms. It is not the member of interest on the school board who solicited every journalist who would answer the call to produce misinformed media content. It is not that school board member who named a single child in this district. This member did not push an aggressive social media campaign to increase attention on these meetings. That member likewise did not start a protest clothing line. You know this to be true. The blame game is an attempted institutional distraction from the reality that you put destructive ideology over education while putting taxpayers on the hook for it. You talk about rights, but the only rights you show any fealty to are those that align with a destructive and revolutionary agenda. It is this abuse of authority and lack of decorum among this administration and many members of this board that has fueled the apparent unwanted attention. The way to make it stop is very simple. Rule with honor and integrity. In thinking of these comments tonight, Winston Churchill came to mind. There's a man whose likeness should be displayed in every library. He was a man who never lost sight of what was right in defense of nation. I'm inspired by his remarks to the House of Commons on June 4th, 1940, as Britain was under siege by Hitler's war machine. He said, "We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on landing grounds. We shall fight in the streets, and in the streets we shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender." We likewise will defend liberty, truth, and virtuous education in the space of ideas and policy. Today, we are under siege from a Marxist and perverse political thought, amplified through the Frankfurt School that developed in the aftermath of the Second World War. The ideas that could not defeat the West militarily now try to defeat us by marching through our cultural institutions, all the way down to this body and its curriculum decisions. Against that backdrop, his words were as true now as they were 80 years ago. I call on you to lead this district
15
well.
seconds remaining.
Fulfill your oaths. Focus on the truth. Embrace rightful public accountability for your actions towards our children. Thank you.
Sandy Smith. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Sandy Smith, a resident of North Leavenworth for 15 years, former paraprofessional, and now the avid tutor at Leavenworth High School. Today was the start to Teachers Appreciation Week, 1 week out of the whole school year, to say thank you to the people who inspire, motivate, encourage, and educate our children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, neighbors, kids, etc. 1 week to say thank you to the people who spend their own money to buy pens and pencils, notebooks, snacks for the kids that don't have enough food at home, tampons for the girls unable to buy their own, and many more things. 1 week to say thank you to the people who cheer our children on at sports games, concert debates, and so forth, because they are invested in making sure every child has someone to hear their name called out for something good, because many times there's no family there to support them. 1 week to say thank you to the people who come to work early, stay late, and work all weekend writing lesson plans, and then grading those late papers just to give our children the opportunity to succeed. 1 week, or probably just 5 days actually, to say thank you to the people who have literally wiped our children's behinds in pre-K and kindergarten, and then wiped their tears as seniors in high school. So during this 5 days, I propose a truce for those of you who have recently been constantly bullying our USD 453 staff. For 5 days, give it a rest. For 5 days, say something positive to a teacher. For 5 days, think about the fact that being a teacher, school teacher, is one of the hardest and yet one of the most rewarding careers anyone can have. For 5 days, put nothing on social media unless it's a note of thanks. Our teachers deserve so much more, but a 5-day truce will mean so much to so many. Thank you for your time.
Sarah George.
Good evening. I'm coming to you because there is a crisis of depression among our children. And as a mother, I am horrified by it. I am not your enemy. I'm a fellow parent, and I hope you care for the kids as much as I do. Numerous studies, which I have sent to school board members, show students' depression being directly related to the dependence on technology in classrooms and permissive approach to screen time in schools. Your choice to emphasize a tech-heavy learning environment has harmed children and not provided learning improvement. Leavenworth students are disconnected and lonely. Student depression is astounding, particularly since the cause of this symptom demands attention. Students have taken their lives, and if you would think about this, in a military unit, commanders would be under investigation for the atmosphere they created. What have you done? Kids are floundering because they don't have actual human connections that schools used to provide. This is a serious problem, and you are the ones with the ability to change things if you have the courage and the will to do the right thing for kids. Students, sadly, do not have a choice of where they go to school, whose class they're in, and now they have teachers demanding that students support and validate their political dogma and personal choices. No minor should have to validate an adult's decision, especially when the adult is in control of the grade they receive and shapes the environment in which they spend 8+ hours of their weekdays. This is textbook abuse. These kids are trapped in a hostile environment. Whatever happened to teachers keeping private lives private and not demanding students support their personal choices? This is an environment of undue influence by educators and staff who foist their personal views, and it's not fair to the kids who need to be equipped for success when they exit Leavenworth schools. Do you think these supposedly tolerant teachers are tolerant of students who disagree, given the way they behave at school board meetings, on social media, and with fellow adults? Of course not. That's why students are the real victims here. Leavenworth students deserve to be taught and equipped for success. Success can be had if there is courage to be decisive. Schools that do this have success rates far superior to Leavenworth public schools, which are in the bottom 50% of Kansas public schools. Math proficiency of Leavenworth schools are 12%. Kansas averages 28%. Reading proficiency of 26% versus Kansas's 36%. And tonight you're about to examine a policy about what extent of sexual imagery and acts can be permitted in school materials.
15 seconds remaining.
Where are your priorities? Digital tech leads to emotional wrecks. Face-to-face teachers and coaches and administrators are what build future citizens and leaders. Finally, your claim to be nonpartisan
Ms. George, your time
is
is
a
up.
joke, and it's really
Ms. George,
sad.
your time is up. Nancy Levine.
Good evening, Dr. Roth and board members. Before I begin with what I really came to say, I'd like to share a few numbers with you as I'm ending out my 19th year here at USD 453. I began my career as an educator 42 years ago and spent 31 of those years in the classroom, and the others were spent at home with small children. I have 2 degrees, countless hours of professional development and continuing education credits. I've taught kindergarten through 5th grade in 6 states, 10 schools with 12 principals, and 10 superintendents, 5 of them which have been here. I've been proud to be a part of this district over the years, and many times friends would ask, why don't you go somewhere else where you can make more money or there's a different clientele? Because my heart is here, my community is here, my children were going to school here, and I've always been proud to be right here. I like our community. I like our student populations. I like the diversity they bring. We're not all the same, nor should we be. We learn from each other, we can celebrate each other and move forward. Everybody brings something different and should be celebrated. Dr. Roth came to our district at a time when we desperately needed him, whether he knew it or not. He came without a political agenda. He came without any aspirations to use our district as a springboard to go somewhere bigger or better, but he came here. And over the years, I've sent a couple email notes to Dr. Roth thanking him for some decisions that were made because he made them for the staff. He backs his classified, he backs the certified, our students and the community. So I would like to thank you, Dr. Roth, for being forward thinking, for pushing us to step out of our comfort zones, for keeping best practices in education in mind and taking the steps to try something new. I don't imagine these decisions were ever made lightly or came easily, but you did them, and you did them for exactly what our statement says, for all students every day. Thank you, sir.
Moving on to item 5, consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as displayed.
Madam President, I'd like to remove one item,
Which item?
the Edmentum,
Okay, so we'll remove 5.5.
please.
Okay. 5.5 will become 6.1.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the amended consent agenda by removing 5.5 and turning that into 6.1.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Murphy, a second by Mr. Goodman to accept the consent agenda with the removal of item 5.5. All of those in favor? 6.1, thank you. Okay. So, questions on 6.1?
Yeah, and Dr. Roth, a couple of things that I kind of wanted to explore about the Edmentum curriculum and all we have. We talked a little bit before this, but for the whole board. When you looked at the course catalog and you looked at what was available to our students, right now, we don't take it through high school. So the question is, it has this, this is available through it. And I understand that as we talked about, it might be the certified teachers that have to cover down on it. But the question is then for homeschoolers. Would this be available for homeschoolers who don't necessarily, they're in another curriculum series, but they do have access to this?
That would be up to the parent, yes, or the homeschool itself on what curriculum is chosen. But this would be an option for them. But they can't log on. They have to enroll with us in order to fall under the license to be able to use our piece of this. And our license goes through 8th grade. So technically homeschool would not be able to use ours, but it would be available to them if they would explore it.
Okay, well, that answered another question, isn't that the licensing is limited to the level of courseware that we want to teach.
Right.
correct?
And so all those modules that you see, most of the parents or the homeschool themselves choose that. So like when you talk about parental involvement or parent choice, that curriculum that they go through with our online, they really do choose the modules that they have. So like our staff is there to help like support, answer questions, make sure logons are right, tutor type things, more so than specifically teach.
Well, and as I understand this, Edmentum provides some instruction, electronically in support of their catalog items. Is
That's
that
correct.
Yeah. Okay. No, that was it. I was just, we're getting ready, as was stated in the information to the board, to take a harder look at our course material like this next year. And so it might be a time for us to take a look and see whether there are programs out there that we could expand to pick up some of the limited use by our high school and middle school students. That was it. Thank you.
Any other questions on Edmentum? Motion.
Madam President, I move that we accept the Edmentum curriculum as presented. Let's see what the cost was. No, there it is. Okay.
$80,145.
Yep, $80,145.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Powell, a second by Ms. Wells to accept the Edmentum recommendation in the total of $80,145. All of those in favor? 6-1, thank you. Item 7, consideration of Leavenworth High School digital textbook license extension.
Good evening. As you saw in your board FYI and in the agenda, this is kind of that bridge license extension for the electronic textbook access for 4 of our social studies courses, 2 of which are the exact same ones they've had in place since 2016. 2 of them are the same author, just a new copyright of that book, and that just bridges us to the full textbook adoption process for next year.
Okay. Any questions?
So why are we having to do an extension?
So when we made the original adoption purchase back in 2016, they had a 7-year or 6-year license length. When those ended, the company then says either we've sunset the product, which is the case for those 2 new copyrights, or you can continue to add on a year-by-year basis. It's a subscription, for lack of a better phrase.
And this just carries us over until the next adoption.
So it gives them that access for these specific courses through the adoption cycle next year, since there could be some windows where they're not piloting. That way they can continue to use those same resources they've been using.
Any other questions for Ryan? Okay.
Madam President, I move that we adopt the digital textbook license extension at the purchase price of $23,413.35 as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Powell and a second by Mrs. Wells to accept the proposal for the textbook license extension. All of those in favor? 5-2, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8, consideration of slurry seal and crack filling.
Good evening. I'm back this month to talk about parking lots and slurry sealing them. Really exciting stuff. We are going to slurry seal 4 different lots. 3 of them are 13 years old. Nettie is probably 15 to 18 years old. Any questions?
With the slurry seal, how long do we expect that to extend the
We're hoping
life?
it extends it for about 5 years.
Okay.
Then it'll be a mill and overlay.
Hoping?
I'm hoping. It depends on winners.
I mean, I know you probably can't answer this with the same standpoint. Why is it no one else seems to ever want to bid on anything?
I did contact one of my vendors. He said that his summer schedule is already full.
Okay.
He'd done a lot of work for us before, but he just couldn't fit us in. Next year, I'll be coming to you probably in January to try to get a bigger jump on it.
Okay.
And get onto somebody's schedule, whatever we're going to do, whether it's just crack sealing or we're going to overlay or slurry seal some more.
Okay, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
For construction season, this is already
No, I know, but I mean,
too late.
you still, I mean, you know,
Yeah,
some of them aren't even really local, and it's like,
And our season's only about a
I know.
month and a half long.
it's either too hot, too cold, too wet.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve the slurry and crack filling for $66,551.56.
second.
From Paradise Payment.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Murphy, a second by Ms. Reed to accept the bid by Paradise Pavement for the slurry seal and crack filling. All of those in favor? 7-0, thank you. Item 9, consideration for a panic alert system with option of classroom cameras.
So this is an item that was presented to the board, I believe, in October. Then went to a conference and board member was asking about adding cameras to the system. And so then that's initiated Matt and Brian to research, go out for RFPs. We came back, wanted more detail as a form of more of a hard bid. So they went out and actually met with vendors. What they have for you tonight is some options to consider with also some price tags to each of those. And so Matt and Brian have done a phenomenal job. They're in the weeds with these companies to an extent that I would almost classify them as experts now in the field of security, or at least these systems of security. So Matt, take it away.
All right. Well, the expert, I'd give credit to Brian a little bit more, but so back in February, we did have this discussion. We did create an RFP to send that out so that you could have actual numbers to make decisions off of. The systems do share some similarities as far as having panic buttons that a user wears. We're going to talk about funding options, whether those are grant, capital, or ESSER $3. We're going to talk about considerations, and then ultimately is what is the direction from the school board? What problems are we solving, and what would you like to provide? As I said, the common features are the systems provide a lanyard for the teacher or staff member to wear. There are 2 buttons or 2 levels, a lockdown and a panic. There are differences between 2 of the systems. One has a single button with a different number of buttons, times you push it to activate. The other one has 2 separate buttons. So when we talk about use of the button, there is a difference between the 2 systems. We won't read all these things, but feel free to read through those as I speak. Strategics was really designed as a security system to give you those alert functions in a number of different ways. Avigilon is the current camera platform that we use for the school district. We have several cameras, several hundred cameras with that system currently. It was our hope that Strategics and Avigilon would have a proof of concept ready for us so that we could integrate those 2 systems as we discussed prior. Unfortunately, they're about a month out from having that actually as a proof of concept. And then Safe Systems is the other system we looked at, and Mr. Harrod has that partially, the sound structure. We have that in some of our classrooms now. So it is a system that's been proven over the years. This would actually integrate that extra function of the microphone that would give you the panic button devices. Each of the systems have a lot of pros to them. As I said, we hope to have an integration fixed for the two, Centegix and Avigilon. But tonight we do have numbers for you if you wanted to look at cameras specifically through Avigilon, and we can talk through that a little bit more. Centegix as a standalone system, and then the safe system has two levels. It has just a notification function with audio, so structured sound in the classroom, and then the other one would incorporate the camera. Here are your costs. So Centegix offered a 3-year contract and a 5-year contract. Avigilon for cameras only. And then safe systems, as I just described, the panic button with structured audio in the classroom. And then if you added the camera to it. So we're pretty close to what our estimates were. If you think back to the last presentation, they are a little bit higher than we were estimating. These are all sizable projects as well. We're looking at 308 classrooms that this would be installed in. Funding, as I said, capital funding would probably be the primary funding source for most of these. We do have a school grant that Ms. Sloan chases. It's come back recently, and we anticipate that it might be around for a while. We could utilize some of that to offset some of these costs, but it is a matching fund grant. And then finally, ESSER 3 requirements. From what I've understood, they need to be spent towards support of the classroom. So the structured sound systems would probably lean more towards the funding. One of the important things to understand about the ESSER 3 is the state makes the decision. So we would submit that, and then it would go through the process to be approved by the state. Some considerations for the board as you're making a decision tonight. If we were to include cameras in this package, if we added the additional 308 cameras, our district would have over 650 cameras in total. Currently, we're running over 350, being managed by my department and Brian's department. We would anticipate policy updates for reviewing that video, sharing the video, storage, retention, and how to retrieve and use that if it needed to be used in a case. It would be our recommendation, Brian and mine, to consider having a person hired to help maintain and manage that amount of cameras and possibly oversee some of the other security features. Other considerations would be staff training and adoption of any of these systems. And then really the strategic plan, it's right around the corner to being completed. Where does this stand in the strategic plan as a priority? Additional considerations. I believe we're sitting at just over $2 million remaining in the ESSER 3 funds. We have discussed with the board, I believe, improvements to Nettie Hartnett. We have had a contractor give us a budgetary number of about $3.5 million. We feel that the ESSER dollars may be spent on that and meet a lot of the check boxes that would be required. However, we would still be about 1.5 million short of that project if it were chosen. Classroom furniture that increases separation within the classroom, moving from tables to desks at Warren Middle, that might be an option as well. We're currently working on some upgrades and repairs for the existing systems that we have in place. As I mentioned, we have a number of cameras, we have a number of door access control. So we're working towards that using that safe and secure grant. So if we were to shift dollars from it, we would just, we would not be able to do quite as much with that grant in replacing those devices. At this point, completion dates are between 4 to 6 weeks in getting material, about 90 days out for one of our contractors to install. Some of the bigger systems, I would anticipate probably going into the start of the school year before they would be completed. And then we want to talk about ongoing costs for licensing and support. So annually, to our best estimate, you can kind of see what the ongoing costs are. Centegix has probably the lowest ongoing cost. It's a system that goes in and it's all battery operated. Avigilon would have licensing for cameras, possibly a staff person to help maintain. And then the safe system, you would have licensing for cameras and software packages to help those things work together. Currently, the storage for the camera systems, the Avigilon would offer about a week to 2 weeks of storage on the cameras. And the safe system, what did we say was?
About 4 hours of cameras actually stored locally on the camera.
So the safe system, as it's designed and bid, would give us about 4 hours of storage. So that's where the policy would come in, to where if something happened in the classroom, to be able to pull that information quickly. So if we wanted to add additional storage, that would be an additional cost as well.
Matt, can you share on the safe system, because that's the one where the teacher would have control of turning the camera on and off?
Correct.
Can you kind of share a cost difference in that?
The cost difference. So if we look at the cost difference, so the safe and audio, you can see as the top number, it's about $1.2 million. And if we add the cameras, it's about 2.4 million. There is a difference that I think Dr. Roth is pointing out here, that on that system, the individual user can turn the camera on and off, and it's identified that it's on by an LED on the wall. The Avigilon would run on constant motion unless we were to design in badge scan or some other device that could be done, or eventually it could integrate with the Centegix system. As far as the cost difference, you're paying primarily for the additional camera. The cameras that have been bid are both, from both companies, are a 360 camera that sits in the center of the classroom versus a PQZ that we had discussed. So they would be equal cameras. Did I answer your question, Dr. Rose?
Yes, thank you.
So when you say the center of the classroom, do you mean like on a podium in the center of the classroom, or is it going to be suspended from the ceiling in the center of the classroom?
So majority of our classrooms have drop ceilings like this. It would be set on the drop ceiling or in flush with it. So it would be centralized to get the best view. In the buildings that we have pendant lights like Nettie Hartnett, they would be surface mounted or put on the wall so that it would have the best view.
So where it still couldn't be easily accessible in case there were something going on and somebody could just smack it off to where you couldn't record.
So for that, we have the height of the ceiling. They do have backer plates that they mount to, so they are rigidly fixed to the ceiling. That does not to say that somebody couldn't defeat it, but they would be on camera.
Okay, thank you.
What kind of warranty on these systems? On the safe system, it's 5 years. On all the here, except for the cameras, it's 3 years on that.
So 5 and 3.
Could you talk a little bit more about clarifying as far as the alert system, like the buttons, which system does pushing a panic button, how does it work with each system? What are the buttons like?
Okay. So each system, describe how it works. And Brian, feel free to jump in. Centegix has a card worn by every user in the district. So the difference here between the safe and the Centegix is inside and outside identification within range. User ID is to that badge. It only tracks you when you push the button. 3-button push activates a local call for assistance. You continue pushing, that can activate the intruder lockdown. That's all on a badge worn on your string.
And we know where that person is pushing the button.
Correct. So it will respond based off of a location finder within the school, based off of the number of devices, and display on an app or software.
So a GPS is built into it.
I don't believe it's GPS. I believe it uses Bluetooth
Okay.
Yeah, it's a wireless technology. The other thing is with the strategics, they're all assigned to a staff member, so you know exactly if you touch the button.
Okay.
With the safe, they're more of an area. So, I mean, you know, Mrs. Jones teaches in room 225 at that building, so if the alert comes from room 225, you can assume it was Mrs. Jones, probably the one who's assigned the pennant mic. But it's not set up in the system with a name attached to it.
Okay.
Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but from the last briefings on those two systems, the Centegix was not hardwired. It uses a different connection system, but the safe system would require us to hardwire our buildings. Is that correct?
Essentially, yes. The Centegix is set up with battery-operated devices that operate off of hubs within a certain section, and then everything kind of triangulates back to that hub to identify your location. Safe system is more of a structured sound system. Again, Brian has that in some of our rooms already for audio. So the intermediate school has that system. Teachers utilize that to speak over speakers so they don't have to yell. So part of that is in place. What they don't have is the extra button on the lanyard. So to Ms. Reed's question, that would have a second button that you can program to do something else. And in this case, it could be that panic call. That system does report back to a front end device, which indicates that that classroom is in need of help. With that, because it has the sound built in, they can, the user of that, whether it's a secretary or receptionist, can respond back with audio. We see that you've called for help. We have somebody head in that direction. So you have a verbal potential, and you also have a visual with the LED light. If you added the cameras, they would be able to see that image as well when it comes up.
And so with the middle section.
So the middle section, again, this is a little confusing. Our intention was to package Centegix and Avigilon as partners. But part of the requirement was to have a proof of concept. And while they're still working on it and they feel pretty confident that will happen, it has not been proven yet. So it is a standalone. If you wanted a camera in a classroom, it would continue the same platform that we're currently using. But without adding money to that, it would run anytime there's motion in the classroom, it would capture sound. What we would have to do is add a device that would actually trigger that to operate. And that could be a scan badge or a badge scanner that we already have that the teacher could just go to the wall and activate it. Or by the time this process is through, it may be able to integrate with the Centegix and operate off of its buttons command and trigger that recording is what we would anticipate.
Matt, it says integration perhaps by June 23. Did they give you any idea where they stand on that?
I think they're doing final testing. As you can imagine, with it being all security driven, I think there's great hesitation to just throw something together. So I think they're just doing their due diligence to make sure everything is operating correctly with the platforms. So I don't have an exact date or where they're at on it, but I do know that they're working on it, and they were regretful that they couldn't have it ready for us.
Nothing precludes us from doing this incrementally either, correct?
So tonight's numbers are based on package. So the only incremental you could do would be if you did Centegix, and then upon proof, you could do Avigilon on top of it. But again, there's no guarantee other than we anticipate that it would work. The safe system, you could do the base, button, and audio, and you could always add the cameras later on. So you do have two steps available, but it would not be broke out by building location. We didn't take bids that way. As you can imagine, bidding multiple sites, hundreds of classrooms was a challenge enough to make sure that we had all the equipment that was necessary included.
So you said we already have the Avigilon cameras throughout the buildings.
Correct. We do
are
have
they,
that platform.
Are they basically based outside in the hallways, but they're not in the classrooms?
It's all in public spaces. So it's hallways, outside, gymnasiums, those type of areas.
Right.
We don't have anything in classrooms at this time.
Okay. And so the safe system would just be kind of a secondary system? So we'd have two separate systems
If
going
you-
on, or would we take one out and replace it with the other?
No, you wouldn't replace. So Vigilon is our camera system we already have in place. It's already doing its job. Safe system, if you did the base, would just be classroom audio and the button for the staff member to.
Okay, so it
call
would
for
be
help.
classroom only.
That's it. That's not adding a camera until you go to the next level where you add the camera. That's the 2.4 million. At that point, then you have a different platform. You have Safe Systems camera platform that is saved locally. It does not join with the Vigilon software.
That was going to be my next question, was how would we retrieve data from it should we want to? If there's, I'm assuming there's no centralized network that would
It has
deliver
its own
that.
management platform. And the other thing is with the Safe, it will integrate with the Vigilon. So let's say the user's out in the hall, it still will pick them up. It's not only going to pick them up on their alert from the classroom. It'll pick them out in the hall. And then you can incorporate the cameras to pull into the management system for the Safe. But as far as retrieving the video, for the video on the Vigilon, you would need to get that off the Vigilon server through their software package, which the offices already have. And then with the Safe, you would do it through theirs. You can, because they're all IP-based cameras, you can feed those video streams to an Vigilon server. But again, where we talked about earlier, a consideration would be a server to handle that video.
Right.
So you would need more external storage than what's on the cameras.
With all of these systems, so you say it goes to a central server, and that's a server that we don't control. That's the Vigilon server.
That is just to do the management of it.
Right.
It doesn't house the video. The video for the Safe system is actually on the cameras on an SD card, but you can retrieve it off of there. You can pull it.
Right. Do we currently, I guess this is a current question out of curiosity for me, do we save that stuff locally and store it?
So our Vigilon system we currently operate is saved locally.
Okay.
Yes, we have servers and all that video is held locally within our schools, but we can retrieve it remotely.
Right.
And what Brian is saying is the Safe system saves it local to the device.
Right.
And we'd have to have policy or pull it off within a certain time frame, or you have the option of driving that information to another server locally or remotely. In this case, it could all go to one server.
Just to clarify though, that it overwrites after, like when that space fills up, it starts deleting, it starts overwriting. So it's not stored forever. So once depending on how much movement, how much action is going on within that camera is the duration that it's actually able to be retrieved. So usually it can be from.
Is that on a per camera basis? Because I assume that's a per camera basis. If on the Safe system. But with the Vigilon.
The teacher's controlling the recording.
Right.
So that storage on there takes a long way. So there's 4 hours of storage.
Right. It wouldn't be constantly on. It would be activated.
But currently our Vigilon system that runs hallways, as you can imagine during passing period, they're gonna run for that 5 minutes or 7 minutes.
Are they motion activated?
It is all motion activated.
So it's not on all the time?
Correct.
Okay. And then when we store those locally, is it like what he said where it gets overwritten after a certain, what's the time frame that we have, the buffer?
It varies depending on the school and number of cameras going to the server. So we have different pixel rate of cameras. So of course a higher rating is going to use up more bandwidth and storage. But typically I would say we are probably between 2 and 3 weeks at most of our buildings. Some of them are longer, but typically if something happens, you can bookmark on that system, which keeps it from being erased, and our principals love using the bookmark. So as something happens, they can flag a time frame. It will not be overwritten. Often they'll pull it down, put it on a thumb drive, put it in the student's folder, those types of things.
All right.
Sorry, go ahead, Lisa.
No, go ahead.
I just had a couple of questions for you. I guess the first would be a consideration for the board if it would be possible to table this until we have that proof of concept, so we know exactly what. And then with respect to your experience and also keeping in mind school violence possibilities, if money wasn't an option, with full respect to the taxpayer dollar, as I've shown, I don't disrespect the taxpayer dollar, but with those things in mind, if money wasn't an option, which would be your recommendation?
I appreciate the comment. I would respectfully stay neutral on this one and provide the board information for you to make the decision. I think you can appreciate that we're working with a number of vendors that we do business with or could do business with. And we would stand to answer any questions or give you technical advice.
Thank you.
What sort of time? So June is when we think the proof of concept may be?
That's what I'm told by Centegix, that they believe sometime into this month, early next month, they would have a proof of concept.
Right.
Again, there's no guarantees. I don't have anything in writing. This is just conversations. I've spoke with we've spoke with every one of these companies, representatives. Avigilon, I think they have the same mentality that it's going to be around here soon, but I believe it's driven by Centegix right now, trying to get their pieces integrated and confirm that they can support that camera system. We're asking them to do something that they have not done.
Right.
And we're asking them to do something that they were not designed to do. So please understand that as we have this conversation,
right,
we approached them and said, can you make this happen? And they have gone out on their own to try and make this happen. Whereas the SAFE system was designed with these options pre-planned.
So the SAFE system cameras are the ones mainly that are in control of the instructor, right?
Correct. As it is right now.
Do they have the potential to run the same way that the others do? So they're not off and on at the control of the instructor, or that's just the only way that they can?
You can program it to do that.
Okay.
If you wanted to. It's built around doing that because it's for education as well. So let's say the teacher wants to record themselves doing a lesson.
Yeah, okay.
Think of a remote, learning too, right? So
Yeah.
that's where that comes into play. That's why it fits so well with us.
Thank you.
So I know the quality that we have with the Vigilon. I see it at the high school all the time when I stop in there and check in or out. And that incorporates with the Synergists. The Safe Systems camera, did you get to see what the qualities were of it and compare to each other? Because I know some cameras, you can have really great visual identification, everything else. And another one is just like 7-Eleven grain.
No, to answer your question, we did not see them in action unless Brian has, and I don't know.
I've seen the specs on the Safe, and it is very high quality.
It is very high quality.
It would be equal to, I think.
What you're already using, so that wouldn't be an influence there. Okay, because that's kind of important.
Any other districts have any of these systems you can look at? We can look at?
So the Centegix I know was going in, went to Olathe. I think they have it in place, and Dr. Roth, you might be able to help me out if there's.
Yeah, I
others.
spoke to both the superintendent, and then the assistant suit that's in charge of security for their district. And it was implemented at the beginning of the school year, and they had great success with that. And they continue to use it as well. So I do know Olathe, and I have spoken to both the superintendent, assistant superintendent on that.
And we were given references of other locations. We just have not gone through that until we get a little bit further.
Well, let's back up a minute. Okay, so let's just use the high school as an example. So when the kids are in the beginning of the day, the exterior doors, if somebody comes in with the exterior doors on the outside, does the alarm go off anywhere?
Currently, if they use a credential, it's a granted access. If it's a teacher or staff member, no, nothing goes on.
No, I'm talking about if somebody's not credentialed.
If they were to break in the door,
Is it got an alarm system set to the door?
it it would not be active during that time. So we have alarm systems, yes. And I don't want to give away all of our details.
Well, I understand, but I'm trying to save some money.
Mhm.
I mean, our security, I've been in the security business a long time, and at the high school, it's terrible. That little breezeway thing with no protection for those people, those desks, can be compromised by a guy coming in, and they just let people come in there, and you can be compromised right there. They own the place then, once they're past those people. And we ought to beef up that portion for one thing. The other thing is following the SOP. That's where a big problem is. People, I went out there one day and I waved to a kid and he came down the door.
What breezeway are you talking about? The new secure entrance that we just built?
Yeah. You think that's secure? I don't.
I mean,
That's the
I'm
chief.
buzzed
I don't-
in.
They buzz me in.
He's in here. He's the expert. Is that a real secure place for the people at the desk? The high school?
Boy, I would just tell you about security that no matter what you do, human error is always going to be the biggest gap you have relative to security.
Yeah.
But I'm always an advocate of adding layers. So if you're talking about adding security, I fully support that. And human error is always the most difficult obstacle to security.
I have a ticket, Mr. Carney. I was let in by a student my last time there as well.
But the thing that bothered me, it's gonna come to where we're gonna have to put 15-foot fences around all of our schools. Because some nut wants to kill kids, he can go there in the band's practice, and he can go to recess at any elementary school, shoot them up. I mean, I understand that the kids are in the school most of the day, but a lot of kids aren't. I mean, I'd like to see us get the best security, but I don't think cameras is the answer first. That's just me. I think everybody's got a body alarm on that's recognized where it's at, and we could hire some new officers that patrol the area on the inside of the school. That kind of price tag, we could have some people on board for, and if it's only guaranteed for 5 years, are we gonna spend $2 million in 5 years again for the same system?
And 5 years doesn't mean it goes to
Well,
foot
I know,
after
but I'm
5
just saying, he
years.
says 5-year warranty, so in 6 years,
Well,
boom, we're gonna spend
yeah.
another $2 million?
I understand what you're saying, but it does not mean that the equipment will fail after 5 years.
No, I know what you're saying.
Dr. Rose, I remember last year that I addressed trying to beef up security and make sure that our positions were filled. Did we have any luck improving that?
Amy, did you hear that question on this hiring security? I know that we're trying to interview a director of security. And
We
they're,
hired, and then we've had a gentleman that has left us since the start of the year. We had another gentleman that was former retired that has left. So right now we have 3 armed officers and 2 unarmed for our district. We have the positions posted. We also have a coordinator of security posted as well. So
that-
we have had officers come and go, armed and unarmed.
So as far as security, would we be in the same position that we were in 21?
We have 1 less unarmed.
Okay.
And we have 1 less armed security officer.
So Mr. Carney, I agree with you that I want to beef that up, but we've had a problem staffing that for years. Thank you.
So what are we getting more from? You say we already have cameras for a Vigilon. Is the numbers that we're seeing for the dollar amounts from the previous slide, are they for additional cameras?
This is all new system. So what we have in place is still in place. It's not changing.
Right.
I had mentioned we need to continue to fix things like we do anything that we own. This is all new system. This is 308 classrooms. The request from the board was panic devices,
Okay.
and then what would it look like for cameras. So that's what we went out and tried our best to put together for you.
Right.
It gets deep pretty quick. And as we've already had conversation, it can go a couple different directions. This is all new equipment. The safe is wired. It is more of a structured sound system with audio. It has a lot of other features. It includes software components that help us manage other pieces of security. Centegix is a wireless system. It's what was brought to the board first. It is being used in this area. And Avigilon it still is a platform that we use. Number of vendors can supply it. But we asked if those things could be integrated since there was already a platform to save on potentially some of the server costs, those type of things. This number does reflect new servers and new storage capabilities. And each building will have a different number of cameras. So our high school and middle school having the most. Those would be a structured wire as well. So as far as wiring and work goes, the Avigilon cameras and safe system would have the most. The Centegix would be the least as far as the physical installation of wiring and power and those type of things.
So the middle school and high school having the most because they're larger buildings?
Larger buildings, more classrooms, correct.
Are these numbers district-wide?
This is for your 308 classrooms.
Okay.
District-wide. This includes Nettie Hartnett, all your elementaries, early education, your high school, middle school, all of your classrooms.
So we would take we would probably want to go with the Centegix and the Avigilon together as a package.
That's if you want cameras and once it has a proof of concept.
Okay, and does the safe system have that push button?
Yes, the safe
Stuff as
system
well.
has the microphone lanyard that has the 2 buttons that you can program. And then you have the capability of talking back and forth with the office.
Right, because they have the microphone.
And then you can add the cameras if you want to. So if you were staging it, you would have that option as well.
So there's no issue with proof of concept for safe system?
No.
There is no proof of concept.
They just
No, safe system it's active. That's how it was designed. Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's been around for years.
Right, but part of me is we asked Centegix to do this proof of principle. I think we owe it to them to show us they can or can't before we say yes or no.
And that's your discretion.
Well, here's my other thing, and we've talked about this before, and I know people have balked at it before, and it gets to fencing. Fencing works pretty well on a military installation. They put up fences that are pretty aesthetic to the eye, blend in pretty well. They do help our intruders when we're talking intruders versus classroom disruptions or medical emergencies. And, clearly they're 2 different things. Have we gotten any kind of estimates for any kind of fencing? And I can say I've had a couple of teachers express to me fencing would make them more comfortable around a couple of the playgrounds on school property because little ones tend to wander off and it still gets pretty close to the road. Have we looked into even pricing any of those? Again, I knew they balked when they said something about it a few years ago, but
We've handled some isolated requests for certain areas of playgrounds for littles or special.
But I'm talking
needs
like really
classes.
securing
No, we have not.
the building area itself, like you would say at Patton or at Eisenhower on the fort,
No,
to
we have
where
not
you
looked
had
at
that gate that locked in and they're not coming in or they're not getting back out, but that the school itself is also on lockdown.
The only property we would have would be Lawson on their playground currently. And it does have gates and it is a fence.
Right, but I mean,
Yeah.
getting estimates to do the
We
other
have not
schools
done
the
any
same way.
estimates. No.
I would definitely be interested in that. I had talked to him last year. I think it was more on the side of like graffiti and we had some complaints from some staff members that gardens or different things they were doing were getting messed up by people coming in overnight and stuff. So but we didn't talk about this aspect of it, but I would be interested in those as well.
I mean, that to me is just a nice barrier for the security portion. May limit some of your cameras basically of need for more cameras in the elementary schools while still securing them for intruder dangers. And then focus more so on the cameras with the Warren Complex and the high school. They may actually even need 2 folds, which still may not cut the price down, but it still kind of gives that extra barrier and protection.
So Judy, are we able to table this maybe for?
Yes, I think we
Is
should.
that okay?
Do you
I
want,
motion,
before you do
Okay.
that, do you want to go out? I mean, we've heard lots of different
Yeah.
requests.
yeah.
So do you want to talk to the fencing company before we bring this back?
Are you wanting
Or do you wanna
to
bring
see
this
fencing
back?
bids before?
I would like to, because they still got to come and present to us. They're not going to present to us till sometime in maybe June. It might even be July, depending on what it is with their proof of concept. And we would most definitely have time to get some fencing estimates. And I'm not talking chain link or whatever. I'm talking more or less like what's around on the fort, the metal black iron gates. Maybe get those bids in by the next board meeting.
So two follow-up questions. It was not our intention to bring the vendors in to do presentations unless that is a change that the board would like to see.
Or however they're going to present that they have their proof of concept.
It was
I'm not
gonna-
saying it
was
has
gonna
to be
show us
directed
proof,
us.
and then we would come back and.
Oh, and I value
validate
your
that they
opinion
were-
on that.
I appreciate
That's good enough information for me, just as long as I know, hey, yeah, they absolutely proved this, and then I'm fine with that. They don't have to bring it to us.
Perfect. And then the other piece, if we're getting pricing for fencing, if that's the request from the board, what size of area? As you know, we have acreage around our buildings. So are we talking immediate playground? Are we talking perimeter of the property to the curb? Because that will play a huge difference. And then we'll also have to visit with the city on what fencing is allowed in those areas at heights and styles.
Because like thinking of David Brewer, I mean, that's concrete from the front door to the street with no lawn on the east side, basically for the most of the front, right? So
It's a
just
lot
trying-
of parking lot on the east side,
Yeah.
yes.
So I don't know exactly.
Yeah, I don't know how you would even get to do it for like the high school. Warren, possibly. You could actually do the whole perimeter.
And is that what you're wanting, is perimeter versus play area? Because you want it as a perimeter fence.
No, I brought it up because I don't want to see us become prisoners.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I think if we just focus on what we can do inside the buildings a little more efficiently, and put 500 cameras in, that, I mean, I don't really see what that's going to benefit.
Your facilities team does a great job with the beautification of our schools. They're an asset to our community, in my opinion. And fencing it in would be ridiculous. The safety of the students on the playgrounds I know we have runners. As long as those issues are addressed, which I think we have done, and those have come to you as best as we can without creating a full perimeter. I don't see the need for that. Can we take a vote on whether or not we think we need to ask for a bid on fencing? Because I don't want to fence perimeters.
Sure.
Well, the issue kind of stems from, we don't know what we don't know. So making a decision right now is impractical. Because, if we're going to put a fence around something like the high school, where would it go? Would it go along the perimeter of the entire property? That would get really expensive, I would imagine. What kind of fence? Is it just chain link? Is it the iron gate type of fencing? That's another thing to ask. I know we've got fencing already around some of the playgrounds. Maybe that's where we start. Is because we don't have fencing around Henry Leavenworth's playground, do we?
No,
Do we want fencing
Anthony,
around that, or Anthony? So those are kind of the questions. Fencing's great for very specific cases, but I don't know that we want to wrap all of the schools around the entire perimeter. So
it's hard to just, it would be hard to do just a playground because the kids use the green space for different plays.
Right,
So you would be
that's the
looking
other
at,
consideration
you
is
would be looking at green
how
space.
far out would we put?
Right.
Because I I like the idea of not having the kids running into the streets. I don't think that's a huge problem right now.
It only just takes one.
It,
Like I
it
said,
only
I've had
just
some
takes one.
teacher
I
concerns.
get that. So I don't know. It would be nice if there was some sort of maybe a look at the practicality of putting fencing strategically around, but I don't know how much we really need the fencing. But and that's kind of, I hate to say it's outside of the agenda item here. Maybe we add this for next board meeting. We can have a discussion about fencing, because we're really just supposed to be talking about the camera stuff.
Right. And I thought the camera stuff was going to be more so because of some of the emergency things or other issues that arise within the classroom versus armed intruder.
Right.
If you're wanting to keep out armed intruder, that's when you also want to stop them out here before they even get in there.
Right.
And the cameras and the badge isn't going to stop them out here. That's only going to be able to identify once they're in there.
Right. But keeping with what's on here, this is kind of how I see it. It sounds like it would be great if Centegix and a Vigilon would kind of mesh together. We could have one system there, and then the other system would be the safe system. So it's kind of, we combine those two, that's one system. The safe system is kind of its other system. They do roughly the same.
They do pretty much exactly the same.
Exactly the same. The only thing that I've heard that's different.
Options between two different types of vendors,
Right.
two different systems, two different softwares, platforms, and we're trying to compare them.
And we're already with a Vigilon,
A
at least in
Vigilon
terms of we've already got some of their cameras in. How much of that will also be integrated into that system? Can we integrate all of our current cameras into the pairing here? Or
everything on the Vigilon and Centegix, everything would work together if they prove concept.
assuming the proof of concept works, that's kind of the
Then you
linchpin.
keep everything we
And then
have.
the safe system is also its own little system that we would put in on top.
No, no, safe system it's an either or.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry.
Either Centegix and the Vigilon or
Right.
safe system.
Right. And I'm seeing it's what, roughly 800,000 for the two Centegix Vigilon systems together. And then the other one is 2.5 million.
Yeah.
So that's the other consideration I'm looking at. So I mean, if somebody, put a gun to my head and said, hey, you got to choose tonight, I'd probably go with the Centegix Vigilon combination. I'd love to see, I'm willing to wait and see if there's a proof of concept where, yay, verily, yes, we can actually do that and see that. So I'm kind of in the camp of tabling this until we get an actual proof of concept.
And so they don't get mixed up with the concerns about fencing, maybe we need to keep that separate. Because
I
I'll make a
would love
motion
for
to
us to-
table this till we get the proof of concept. And then if somebody wants to raise a motion to get estimates for fencing, we could work those separately, but to the same end. So Madam President, I move that we table the consideration for panic alert system until we have a proof of concept that then can be briefed back to the board and a decision made.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Powell, a second by Ms. Murphy to table the consideration of the panic alarm system until we have proof of concept. All of those in favor? 6-1, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to explore fencing at least around Anthony and Henry playgrounds. Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Murphy, a second by Ms. Reed to explore fencing on specifically Anthony and Henry.
Mhm.
Okay, playgrounds.
Playgrounds, yep.
All those in favor? 3-4.
Is that a yes or a no?
It's a
Would
no.
be a no. 3-4. Motion did not carry. Item 10, republish the 2022-2023 school budget. Dr. Rowe?
This is Miss Beth.
So, good evening. KSDE has advised us to republish the budget for the general fund and at-risk budgets for this school year. We are one of 165, give or take, school districts across Kansas that have been advised to republish the budget. This is due to the increased number of direct certification students approved for free lunch from the Kansas Department for Children and Families. This increase is due to the number of Medicaid eligible students across the state being approved for free lunch at the beginning of the school year. We were advised during the budget process to estimate comfortably what we thought would happen. And so the budget was estimated for 1,400 free lunch kids. It came in 479 students more after the KSD audit here in April. So based on that, after it goes through the at-risk formula, which is part of the school finance formula, so the additional funds come to help student needs across the district. Our general fund budget would go up approximately $1.1 million, give or take. And then it goes from the general fund into the at-risk fund. So we have to republish the at-risk fund as well. There is no, this does not affect our 22-23 revenue neutral rate. The mill rate previously approved does not change.
And you're just asking for permission to republish.
So a notice would be published in the Leavenworth Times probably next week. And then it has to have a 10-day waiting period, which would then at the June 12th board meeting have a budget hearing to approve the republished budget.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the republishing of the budget.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Murphy, a second by Mr. Goodman to republish the 2022-2023 school budget. All of those in favor? 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. All right, item 11, consideration of Easton Bus Service Contract, 3-year extension. Dr. Oates?
Yes, so Easton Bus has been your bus service company for, I don't know how many years now. I know the last 9 for sure. And so their contracts you will see in the board agenda. Beth and I met with Jeff, the owner of Easton Bus. And what we did is looked at a 1-year and a 3-year to give the board an opportunity. Basically, you'll see it's a 3% increase each year. I will tell you that he's held it pretty constant for us over the years. And bus prices have skyrocketed over the last 4 or 5 years, where you used to buy a bus for 55, 60,000. Now they're 95 to 100,000. The other thing is with the option, this guarantees like a 3-year, which Beth and I would both recommend just because it locks in any major jump if fuel goes up or cost of bus, those types of things. I will tell you the biggest struggle that they have, but it's across the state, and you'll see in staffing reports, personnel is the toughest thing, right? So bus routes, changing bus routes, doing those types of things, we have to be strategic with them, and they've been a good strategic partner, but they are struggling with staffing just like every other entity that's affiliated. So it would be our recommendation. Beth and I have worked with Easton Bus. Jeff has done a good job taking care of our district. I will tell you that the other district that uses this is Baser-Linwood. Baser is also an Easton Bus. They went out to bid a couple years ago, and the services that were out there did not come in under the price, and it wasn't even close. And so really your other lines would be first student, Durham. And so those they also do some of your larger districts. They do, but those would be the companies that they would be bidding against. And Baser did go out, and it wasn't. So referencing them, which they're closer to the metro area, that felt like that their prices would be better than ours, being further away from the metro.
How many buses does Easton use to do our student routes in the morning and in the afternoon?
I think their fleet, and don't hold me to this, but I think their fleet's around 18. And that
18
includes our
buses to
special
cart
ed,
our
that includes our
kiddos.
special ed routes and regular ed routes. A lot of the ways that they bid this, Miss Murphy, is they do it on a double route. And that's why the change, like, that's why we try to have a 30-minute window between our middle school and high school start times and our elementaries. So they have time, the same driver would have time to run a route.
Pick up and
Go
drop.
right.
Right. The reason why I ask, I just know Mr. Carney over the years has had a wish to have our own buses, but then to look at the cost of buying
So
buses.
that's one of the things that we actually, Beth and I actually talked about this year, but like a facility, a maintenance facility, to purchase all the buses, those types of things, it
Right.
would be.
It's an exorbitant expense,
Right.
expense. That's why I just wanted that number there. If nobody has any questions, I'll make a motion to approve it.
I've got one more. The question has to do with if we go with a 3-year contract, if the bus service is sold, which we know that has been a possibility for a number of years, if they still continue to do service, would they have to honor the contract?
According to what Mr. Kincaid said, that if they would ever sell within this period, he would have it written in the contract that that would be honored.
Okay.
That's fine. So I'll make a motion to approve the 3-year because of fuel prices and all that other fun stuff, through 26 for the cost of, is that actually telling me the cost?
Right, there's 3 different years.
Right, so $1,247,711.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Murphy, a second by Mr. Goodman to accept the 3-year extension as advised. All of those in favor? Okay, 6-1. Okay, item 12, consideration of policy IF textbooks, instructional materials, and media centers.
This is a policy update and a change that was presented by the board.
Yeah, I think there's been some question about whether or not, because there were some significant changes to it, whether we needed to make this a first read, back to being a first read. And I would suggest that, because I don't know that we've got a legal consideration or anything along those lines. If anybody has an exception to that,
I would like another read.
I'd like to make this a first read. I move that we make this IF policy a first read.
So what we see now in the black and the red is what is the proposed language.
The red is the new
Right
language.
now, proposed language, yes.
Okay.
Dr. Wild, is it possible to have stated which board members put this forth?
Yes, Mr. Powell sent that request to Miss Brenda.
Thank you.
Well, and Mr. Goodman and I worked on this.
Thank you.
While we're on this, getting ready to prove it, and I did have a conversation with you today too. A lot of times when the state comes in, and the state is the one that gives us the board suggestions for each year for board policies, and that's been normally put down as for public viewing as well for the state changes. It is up to a district, and they send it to all the districts. It's up to the district if they will keep it, or if they will reject it, or they will reword it to suit themselves. Board practice has been, if there's been something that a board member has put forward, that it has been in executive portion of the agenda. My concern with doing that is no wonder some of the constituents are confused of what is executive policy and what isn't executive policy. And I know it's board practice, and it was board practice before you came here, but I think it might be a consideration from now on. If there is a suggestion up there that it go ahead and be put in public rather than let a board member put it out there and then somebody else gets agitated because it's out there, but not where everybody could see it. And I would like to see board policy change that it get published in the public privy, because this is not a like executive session where we do not discuss anything there. And I think that would uphold a lot more transparency and make a lot of people in the community feel more comfortable.
I was talking with Dr. Rose about if it's not actual executive content that we have to discuss in executive session, can it be open to the public just in general so that everyone gets to see what we are seeing if it's not actually something we need to handle in actual executive session?
And I don't believe there's a policy around that. Again, as Ms. Murphy alluded to, it's been board practice to have that, to give you an opportunity to weigh in prior to the alarms going off. But that's, to my knowledge, Robert, it's just practice. It's not policy.
I think we should
That's
treat this
correct.
the same way that we treat the state's amendments that they give to us to make a decision on, and have it fully visual for the constituents when the agenda gets published.
Yeah, anything
I mean, and they
that's
can
not
let the
executive-
emails fly or whatever else, but it's not, just us knowing and whether a board member decides to publish it publicly or not, which, as we talked, they have a right to do that. Something I learned today was if it said executive, I didn't never talk about it. So again, that's why I understand some of our constituents and community members concerned that, oh, well, it's executive, it can't be talked about, but yet it could. So because of the board practices. So that's just me trying to make sure everything is more transparent, and then the conversations, and those conversations, when the community sees this, it allows hopefully constructive conversations to where things can be weighed in even prior to on the first read to work on for the second read, rather than having that short time that, I didn't talk about this or I was like, oh, I can't talk to anybody about this. It says executive. And I honestly, 5 years and 4 months on the board, did not know any better because it said executive.
I agree with Miss Murphy. Write that down.
So do we need to vote to do that?
Well,
Or
there's a
Okay.
motion on the table, though. we
To make
need
it
to
first
address.
read.
Before we do that, I mean, that's kind of what this is. This is the first read. This is the presentation.
Actually, this is second read.
it's a second
this
read.
is second
This would be
It's
the- this would be the
been
final
revised
read.
again.
And it's been revised.
Right, but this is
So now it's
significant
going
enough.
out for another read,
It should be
which is going to give all our
restarted as a one.
constituencies at least a month to look at the content and decide whether or not they like it, and to voice their opinion to us, their representative leaders. So
That's
I mean-
happening now, but when we get the stuff from the state, it's published publicly in public agenda,
right.
in red from the state. Anything that we may submit and write is
Right.
put in executive, and the public never sees it or hears about it till we step into this boardroom. Had this gone ahead and be published at the agenda, a lot of the questions could have already been answered, even before now, even considerations could have been adjusted before now, rather than being looked at of, oh, well, it's executive content, but the board member went ahead and talked about it after they got the agenda. Why wasn't it on the agenda to begin with for all of us to see?
Because this was considered second read, but it was still an executive content.
Right, but I'm saying that executive
No, I
content gets
agree with you. I'm
confusing.
just trying to clarify.
Okay. Because, I mean, this is where the public gets to see it now. I mean,
Again,
this
the
is.
public sees it from the state the minute we put out that agenda. The public did not get to see this. In fact, I don't think they can see it on the agenda now. It's still blank. The
Yes.
only people that can see it is us. So
Yes.
all they are hearing is what we're talking about. They have not read it because it's not been published in public agenda. It's only in executive agenda.
Okay, so you're wanting all the executive stuff to be published.
Because it's not executive like an executive session.
Right, no, it's not. It's simply,
And it's being-
I
it's-
think that's the name that we've given it. I don't know that it's ever been something that's super secret that nobody can look at except for board members.
Well,
I
nobody
think it's
can
always
look
just
at
been
it
a-
except for board members.
Right.
Nobody can. That's what I'm trying to help
I mean,
alleviate.
Okay, so what you're saying is you want,
I want it done the same way the
I mean,
state
I
knows are.
kind of do too.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to have all this stuff published on the agenda as an agenda item I'd actually like to see more stuff because, I see PowerPoint presentations that get shown to us during the meetings
Yes.
that I would love to be able to access
Mhm.
here and get a closer look, and also the public to see it as well.
Yes.
So I mean, I'm in agreement with you. I don't want it to be like.
I just don't know what we need to do about that.
We've been holding
but
this
what's-
as a secret, and now we're foisting it upon the people.
No, it's just something I have noticed that it's like the state gives us the information in red and then we decide to pass it through or not, whether that we do it in the consent agenda or not, or we rewrite it and have another read. I've noticed these last couple of adjustments that have been done by board members.
Right.
They show up in the red just like the state suggestions, but it only shows up in executive content. If I went in public agenda, it is not there. And I think that does a disservice to our community members to not be able to see that. Now, again, I have no problem making a motion to do this as a first read and coming back to it at our next meeting, but then figure out what we do to make sure that we're not just tucking this away in executive, that the public can see all these rewrites, regardless of if it's the board member, the state, or something else, because it's not an act of privacy here like an executive session.
I can withdraw, or you can wait and we finish this motion that's on the table and
Right.
you make another motion to do that. I think I would support it.
Is that something that would need
It's
board
just practice.
action?
It's just
or is
board
that
practice. It's
simply
not
a
policy.
Policy change that we can make.
It's not a policy.
It's not
just
policy, it's a
practice.
Just a practice change that we can make with
Mhm.
the administration.
And I would, for the sake of transparency, ask that it's on first read, because even though we don't necessarily have the habit of passing things on first read, we could pass it on first read. And I would want the public to have seen it and had the opportunity to communicate. Absolutely. Prior.
Yeah, anything, and that would go for student handbooks and
Right.
everything else. I'm fine with
The only
that.
thing that wouldn't would be anything of security that would be for
Right.
staffing reports or.
But that's always
Right.
marked,
That's
that's
always-
almost treated like an executive session.
I mean, it's almost, I hate to say it, it's almost kind of a semantics where we're calling it executive content, but it's really,
But it's not published to where public can see it, so
okay.
it's a disservice.
It's an easy change.
Easy
Thank you.
change.
So I'd like to make a motion to
Well,
list this.
Hold on.
Oh,
We have a
That's
motion
what
on
I'm
the
saying.
table.
If we can finish the first motion, if you're good with it.
That's what I
Then-
thought the first motion was.
No,
to
it was
do
not
this.
seconded.
already
It's
on-
only,
it's
it's
already
only
on.
on the
First
table
read.
without a second.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion by Mr. Powell and a second by Mr. Goodman to table IF and make it a first read. All of those in favor? 6-1, thank you.
And then do we need to have a motion for the next one, or it's just?
No, just change practice.
Yep. Good change.
Thank you.
All right, item 13, student handbook.
It's a first read.
So there you go, first read. Any questions at this time? It is a first read.
It is a
Okay.
first read.
Item 14, superintendent report. Dr. Oath?
I do have a few things for the board this evening. First of all, your future superintendent, Dr. Kellen Adams, is in the house. So Dr. Adams is back there. Welcome him to our district. It's great to see him and getting involved. And so he's able to initiate himself much quicker this way. So Kellen, thank you for being here this evening. One thing that the board needs to be aware of, and kind of just need not so much direct, like a vote or direction, more of a consensus direction of what you want to do. We've talked a lot about just in our own district about personnel and open positions. Well, right now, your before school and after school care, which is our Horizon Kids, is ran and funded through the foundation. Well, they're having a hard time filling positions, and they're looking to do away with the Horizon Kid program. Katie and I met with KinderCare, which is a national organization, but it came in a lot higher than what we or she believes that families would be used to or utilize. They have reached out to the local Y to see if they would be able to take the additional students and run it similar to what Horizon Kids would do. So what that means is that the foundation would no longer be a part of the early childhood or early child care or after school child care or on breaks. It would be us as a district contracting out the services with a different organization. The delay in this would be licensure and getting that particular entity licensed under, even though they have, the way I understand it, even though they have the same services at theirs, at their building, if we would bring it like Horizon Kids are ran, it would be licensure would have to change and you'd have to go through the state to reapply for that. So Horizon's kids wouldn't necessarily reciprocate over, as well as theirs if they come into our facilities, because our facilities would have to be reevaluated.
How many students does this affect?
I believe the enrollment that was at the last foundation meeting, I believe we're right around between 30 and 35 students. And so right now it's operated at, originally it was operated at all the elementaries. That's narrowed. They've worked some things out transportation wise. Anthony no longer, they bus kids. They do a variety of things based on need. So I guess the consensus is this something the board wants me to pursue, understanding there may be a gap in services. They'll go through summer, but their intent was not to begin it next fall.
I guess my question is, because I'm still unclear, what precludes us from contracting Horizon Kids? I mean, I understand the licensing, but now what distinguishes it? Who is actually serving in our same location and with our same processes? What's different if we contract with them to run Horizon Kids?
To be honest with you, Mr. Powell, would be staffing.
But I mean, they provide the staffing. That's what I'm getting at.
But that's the thing, they don't have the staffing to provide at the quality or the timeframes that they committed to. And so
it's the issue of taking them to their facility, but they already have an ongoing program.
Right, it's taxing the workforce and the people that currently are working for them to where things can't be covered. So then it becomes a safety issue.
I got it, understand.
And we can't guarantee that, like if we would try to take it on, our staffing report's pretty thin anyway.
No.
So the option is just to either discontinue the service or to.
So if you discontinue the service, it would put the individuals that use that to go more out to the community daycares that are already in existence, or it would give somebody an opportunity to reboot the system, or if the board chooses not to do that, the foundation may reconsider. But I know that they're really struggling with the conversations with Katie, that this is a direction that they're leaning towards, is doing away with the program.
So which way are we headed right now?
I mean, we can see what proposal, the why, that's local to see. Katie's had some initial conversations. I haven't been part of those yet. So I would be more than willing to get more information to the board, and we can send some stuff out to you through the FYI, what we find out and kind of cost. But you still, if the board makes a decision in June, there could be a delay to start a school based on licensure if that's what has to change.
So is that something, that's not something we need to get more than one?
It's a service, so therefore it doesn't have to go out to hard bids because it's a service. And theoretically, you would be contracting out, so you're not like purchasing a roof or buying a car or doing those kind of things.
So how many kids did you say this affected?
I believe I believe the last foundation meeting, there was 30, I think she said 32 or 33. So I'll say 30 to 35.
And this is before and after school or just after?
Before school, after school, and parents sign up for different things. You may not need before school care, but you do after school care. So there's different layers and levels that they have. And then
Do
also
the parents
breaks.
pay for this at all?
The parents pay all of it.
Parents do pay for it at all. Okay. And about how many, so these kids are still staying in the school where they attended to do this. I would like to see the breakdown numbers of how many kids it is at each building that this affects. And then I would like to see their staffing numbers that they do have right now, just to take a look and maybe see, pay, what the pay is for them to do that. And maybe we can figure out something to structure that might be able to be a compromise to get that figured out better.
So
Because I used to run a daycare, so.
We'll have that information for you. One of the things I also have on here, Matt alluded to it earlier, is the strategic plan. It's been a request that we look at June 7th, which is right before and we could, if the board would agree to a June 7th work session to really dive into the strategic plan, that we could tag that information onto that, which would be a week earlier than waiting until the regular scheduled meeting. If that would be workable for the board.
Works for me.
So we'll tentatively schedule a June 7th strategic plan. End of the year barbecue for those board members that are available will be May 25th. We will do this at 11:30 on the kind of the northeast side of the Warren Middle School, which it's the big driveway up to the kitchen. We'll have hamburgers and brats and chips. This is a great way to send the teachers off to their summer. And it's also a way to show appreciation. As you all know, it's Teacher Appreciation Week. And regardless of all the ups and downs that we've had throughout the school year, your teachers, your support staff, your custodians, everybody that goes into the opportunity to educate kids is extremely special to our school district, and they deserve all the appreciation that we can possibly give them. The end of the year barbecue is something we started 9 years ago, and outside of COVID, we've had it every year. Cynthia and her crew do a great job ordering all the stuff, and Dave Stoka and his crew and Matt and we do the cooking. Mr. Carney's been a part of that most of the time as well. But it's a good time. You see lots of smiles, lots of deep breaths, and 11:30 a.m. High school graduation. For those of you that are able to attend, we will meet in the high school office on the 20th of May at 9:50 a.m. or by 9:50 a.m. We'll have your gowns and that they're ready for you to go.
You said 9:50?
9:50, please. Yes. And then the last thing that I have is I think that it's important. We had the retirement dinner last week for staff members that are leaving. And this year, we get to say goodbye to 13 individuals, even though it's sad for us. It is extremely exciting for them. But it's sad for us because we lose 290 years of service to the USD 453. And I think that's pretty incredible. So the individuals are displaying up on the screen.
Mr. Palmer's is really that's okay. That makes sense. Yep.
Mr. Palmer is Batman for sure.
Absolutely. Bruce Wayne, actually.
Kevin Morosky has 44 years of service to the district. 44 years is pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's true.
That's when he started growing his beard.
But all of these individuals on this screen have helped shape the lives of our students, helped make our district better and our community strong. Thank you.
All right, item 15, executive session for non-elected personnel. How long?
I would say 20 minutes.
Does anybody need a bio break for that?
Yes. So we can do bio break.
Return at 8:30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bio break.
Madam
first.
President, I move we go into executive session to discuss non-elected personnel pursuant to the exception under the Kansas Open Meeting Act in order to protect the privacy interests of individuals to be discussed, and that we return to open session in this room at 8:30.
Second.
And the board will invite Dr. Roth, Amy Sloan, and Board Attorney Robert Engela.
All right. We have a motion by Mr. Powell, second by Ms. Murphy to go into executive session and return to open session at 8:30. All of those in favor? 7-0. Thank you. Take your bio break first, please. Okay. Need a motion?
Yep. Madam President, I move that we accept the,
Excuse me, I need to recuse myself from the staffing vote because I have a family member that is on that list.
So you'll need to let her get out.
I got it. Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Would you like to finish your motion?
yeah. Madam President, I move that we accept the staffing report as presented.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Powell, second by Mr. Goodman to accept the staffing report as presented. All of those in favor? 6-0. How you count that one? 6-0.
And the notes,
Just Murphy recusal. Good, Ms. Brenda. Got it. Good, Ms. Brenda. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Item 17, our upcoming meeting dates. So just to remind everyone, our JROTC award ceremony is the 10th, that's this Wednesday. The 18th will be senior honors night. It's a virtual event. Graduation will be the 20th. 25th will be that last day of school. Memorial Day is a holiday. And then on June 7th, we'll have a working session here to work strategic plan issues. And our next board meeting is the 12th.
What time on the June 7th?
we'll do 6 o'clock. Keep it consistent for the board.
And then how do
Also-
we, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
how do we tune in virtually to that event?
I don't know how to ask Mr. Anderson.
Tune in virtually to the
No,
scholars.
to the
Yeah.
senior-
To the,
We'll get something out to you.
okay.
Yep.
I don't see the added scholars.
Oh, the
on
school
here.
ceremony is the 12th.
Yeah, 11 o'clock.
Yes, 11 o'clock at the school ceremony at the high school.
Right, 11 o'clock?
Yes, at the library.
All right, item 17.2, unscheduled patron input. I'm not going to go through the whole listing, but just to remind those speakers, we have 3 minutes, and then I'll give you a notice of 15 seconds. So this time, Chris Allen.
Ladies and gentlemen of the school board, I apologize for my dress. I'm very underdressed for this occasion, but I was driving back to the house and saw the protesters on their different sides. One pro LBGT, one against LBGT, and all that stuff. And my call here is for nuance. So I didn't pick to be up here, but I'm the father of Mac Allen, who spoke last month. And Mac asked simply for guidance on uniform wear within JROTC. I am her dad, his dad. I'm still getting the pronouns straight. I fight this battle every day. It's oversimplified on both sides here. My daughter, son, is currently on the way back from Daytona, where they placed third in nationals for drill, and I'm very proud of that. Over the course of this time, I've got 2 phone calls. One, hey dad, I can't use the female bathroom. Or hey dad, I can't use the male bathroom. Which bathroom do I use? How do I answer that as a dad? I don't know. My answer is, what have they told you? What did they tell you? And she's like, well, I don't know. He's like, I don't know. And that's not right. We battle as parents. How do we deal with the situation? I'm a Republican. I'm a retired veteran. I don't fit the mold of, I tell my kids to watch Fox, to watch CNN, to watch, watch it all. Get your facts straight. I asked the parents in here to do that as well. My kid is just like your kid. I didn't choose this path. This path chose me. What I ask from the school board is nuance and direction. 2 things. One, just what is the policy for kids using the bathroom. On the way back from their trip, these ladies kicked my kid out of a bathroom, out of a restaurant bathroom. I don't know how to deal with that as a dad. So what I ask from the board is just for clarity. I'd like to find out what happened on this trip, and I'd like it in black and white. What is the policy for transgender kids? My kid has a diagnosis. I didn't ask for it.
15 seconds remaining.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So I end with this. I just ask for nuance in your policy decisions. I know we all are on different sides of this issue, and that's fine. I ask for nuance, and I just like answers as far as what happened on this trip and for the future. Thank you.
Karen Overby?
I'll be quick. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the conversation about the agenda. That is something that has frustrated me for the past year as somebody who's trying to stay informed and trying to learn what's going on. We don't see what you see. And so it's very hard to even know where to start when I don't know. I'd like to see the policy, but I don't know, did the policy come from the state? Did the policy come from our district? What does it say? There's no way to give input because we don't see what you see. So I very much appreciate that whole conversation. And I'd also like to add that maybe a good example is if you look at the agendas that Lansing has put into place, when they're going to vote on something or they've got a policy change, a handbook change, on the public agenda, there's always a link to that. So you can click on that so you can see, because it's just been a frustration of mine, at least for the last year, is trying to figure out, you say we're transparent, we want public input, we appreciate different points of view, and it doesn't seem like that. So I so appreciate that. I also wanted to add, there was a speaker up here talking about teacher appreciation. I know there's a lot of friction about public education, and a lot of the scrutiny is earned, in my opinion. It's a huge, huge bureaucracy, huge institution. There's a lot of groupthink, moves very slowly, and sometimes a little too fast with some of the stuff that's coming down lately. But I do want to make it clear that we do appreciate our teachers, and we do appreciate our board members, and we appreciate that people want to do the right thing. So I want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you, and thank you to our teachers, and we'll continue to battle it out, and we'll continue to have friction. But it's only because it's a very expensive enterprise, and the stakes are really high. It's the future of our country, and it's our children. So with that, good night. Thank you.
PJ Wells?
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Roth. I'm PJ Wells, and I'm a sophomore at Leavenworth High School. To start, I would like to thank all my teachers who have got me through all my years of high school, not just this year. It is sad you guys only get one dedicated week, but truly without all of you, I wouldn't be able to speak at this stand tonight. Over the last few meetings, I have been disgusted with the actions and comments made by certain board members and community members. It's simply gross that so many people speak on behalf of their children of what is too explicit or too extreme for our minds. Every class I have ever taken has pushed me to grow, not just to be a better student, but to be a better human being. If the parts of the lessons that now can be seen as too explicit or over-sexualized by individuals were not taught or simply not accessible, I would not be able to be as whole of an individual as I am today, nor would I have the ability to understand any and everyone's background, even if I do not personally agree with them myself. Just think, what classical art would be pulled for containing nude material? What information about famous authors wouldn't be taught because they may be LGBT or talk about LGBT relationships? What history wouldn't be taught because it talks about gay rights movements or the sexual revolution during the 70s that helped drive forward later monumental movements in the US? What wars wouldn't be taught about because the horrors done by certain groups are too explicit for children's minds? Shielding information away from students because it may not appeal to select Leavenworth families destroys the wanted sense of community all of us students look for in our schools and destroys our building of a full education. Underrepresentation leads to the feeling of uncomfort among student populations who don't get the same representation as their peers. We're in a school district built on making sure all students feel safe and comfortable within our buildings, but restricting what can be taught and read automatically takes that comfort away. I simply ask everyone tonight to truly consider, why are you so scared of representation? And how your very loudly voiced concerns about representation affects the students you're trying to repress. Thank you all for your time and good evening.
Liz Anstein?
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Rowe. First, I just want to say thank you to the gentleman. I'm a teacher at the high school, and it's our job and our honor to serve every single student. I want you to know that. We came up with opportunities for students to use restrooms this year, I think with our first year to ever have co-ed, and my heart goes out to you. It was, first of all, good to see you guys last week at the international event for our students. It's nice that you're able to come out for some of those activities at the high school. The year's been long and grueling. Certainly not something I signed up for, and certainly not something that his child signed up for. I'm a very passionate advocate of Leavenworth schools, and I absolutely love working here. I get to do what I love beside a bunch of students, more students than I realized I was going to affect. And however, at times I don't feel supported. Many students and teachers don't feel supported, and it's weighing very heavily on my heart and on my personal and professional ability on a daily basis to provide and grow a meaningful and inclusive career-based experience for students. More importantly, however, the district is responsible for the service to students who come to school intending to learn in a safe environment and who desperately want to be prepared for life after high school. There are many teachers feeling as though they are in a crisis situation with no voice and minimal to no support. In the height of my executive level corporate marketing career prior to this current career, I was in a very competitive time frame where a dog-eat-dog industry and working on many cross-departmental teams, staff members always respected each other and they worked together with all stakeholders. And it is vital that we do that here at this school district. And in order to reach the level of success in the schools that we all desire to have. There are teachers who have hope, desire, passion, and ability to get our current situation turned around. However, when we continually hear that our schools are failing, especially from people who don't visit our schools, and without solutions and motivations, the flame is likely to go out. And I think we're seeing that as teachers are leaving. As I am sure you know, when students feel supported in school, they have explicit guidance and skills on regulating their behavior and recognizing how it affects themselves and others. They are able to acquire the knowledge, skills, attitude, and values necessary to shape a sustainable future. Adversely, the lack of student achievement affects the entire community in a negative light, deteriorating the opportunity of sustainability. Students and staff at Leavenworth schools are worth far more than the services and support they are currently receiving. And it's ultimately keeping students from reaching their full potential. It is very difficult for students to feel supported, especially when teachers are not always feeling
15
supported.
seconds remaining.
We desperately need one team with all stakeholders being represented to work towards the specific measurable goals. Making statements that we are one team and printing t-shirts that state that does not make it so. However, together, we really do need to make it so. I can finish and give you the rest of this, but I do hope that we look at behavioral issues. We
Ms.
look
Stein,
at
your time is up.
schools,
Ms. Anstein, your time
and
is
we
up.
give a constant attention to
Ms.
growing our
Anstein, your
career-oriented
time is up.
programs.
All right, 17.3, board member comments. Ms. Reed.
I hope that, I don't know what is planned, I wasn't involved in that, but I'm sure, does the Educational Foundation usually do teacher appreciation stuff during Teacher Appreciation Week?
They have done stuff throughout the year.
Okay.
Usually-
I wish I knew what was going on for the teachers. I feel sort of uninformed at this moment, so.
So a lot of PTOs do things during
Okay.
so it's separate than the foundation, yes.
Well, I can't go around and celebrate each person, but I wish I could. And I hope that everyone has an amazing time of feeling appreciated this week. Everyone that I know that sits on the board, I don't want to talk for the board, but I personally believe that I know that I greatly appreciate all the good that every staff member does in every classroom every day. Thank you.
Mr. Goodman?
I also wish to express my opinion about teacher appreciation. I know the direct impact that teachers have had on my kids. They've almost always been positive, and they've helped my kids learning, growing, and I expressly appreciate all that our teachers do. And I understand that a lot of teachers feel put upon. I know that we're going to disagree on things in our school districts, in our beliefs. That doesn't mean that we don't appreciate all the things that our teachers do for us. And when our teachers provide all those things, we're grateful for them. In certain times, though, sometimes our teachers let us down. Last board meeting, I expressed my opinions on issues that were related to my kids. And these were issues that occurred in the middle school 4 years ago. They happened. It was dealt with at the time. The social studies department at the high school took that to mean that it was them. And because obviously my kids are now in high school. So I received emails to that effect. I decided to meet with one of the teachers and discuss with him what their grievances, what his issues were. And we had a very good exchange with Mr. Vanek at the high school. Unfortunately, the more our conversation went and the more questions that I started asking, the more I began to realize that the issue that was happening in the middle school has carried over to the high school. And this is a problem that I'm very concerned about. We'll be doing a more thorough examination of what's going on and take a closer look at the curriculum. So that's where we're standing right now. And that's where I promised that I would address the issue, and I have. I appreciate everything that the administration does in helping me with these issues. And yes, we're going to disagree on things. We as a community have to find ways to come to agreements and find a middle ground and not put so much extremism on everything. And that's my primary focus. I know some of you don't believe me, but that is where I want to get to is a more cohesive and peaceful community that can find common ground where we can and agree to disagree where we can't. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Murphy?
I want to echo the appreciation for all the teachers. I know you all work like tremendously hard from pre-K all the way through 12th, plus sports and coaching, and your days really never end. And I would like to have a discussion later about how we can take care more of the supply issue so teachers are buying less. That's always been a concern. I know my mom did that too. So yes, appreciate all you teachers. Even if we don't always agree on everything. While thanking teachers, it is also Nurses Week. And we can't ignore the fact we have nurses in our schools too. And they're the ones that treat the boo-boos or, get the kid in the ambulance with a broken leg or even treat the teacher with aspirin or whatever they may need. So kudos to all our nursing and medical staff that we have within our schools. On top of that, and with that appreciation, some of which of those teachers and or nurses are also military spouses. And this is Military Spouse Appreciation Day. So it would be good to recognize not only are they teaching or healing our staff and students, but they are also serving their country alongside of their active duty spouse or retired spouse, and then contribute considerably to the community as well. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know thank you's just words, but thank you. So, DECA, Florida, way to go. You guys did a great job. Our drill teams, color guard, Cav Angels, armed, unarmed, you name all, they're bringing back a whole bunch of trophies that they still probably won't know where to put them all. They're going to be tired when they come in the morning or when they come in. But kudos to them. The Cavalry Angels got second place in nationals, while the armed drill got third place. So big kudos to that. You may not have won the number one top slot, but you will always be our champions and winners to us every day, all day long. Graduation. Everybody's going to be really happy. They're going to be excited. Please remember, do not drink and drive. Do not take drugs and drive. Don't take drugs. Be safe. Be courteous to wherever the houses that you're partying in or whatnot. And congratulations to each and every one of you. Congratulations to the teachers and the coaches that help you get to this. This is going to be a standard in your life that you're going to look back on for the rest of your days and remember. And I probably could say 100 other things, but thank you.
Can I just add to Miss Murphy? We are planning graduation for both outside and inside.
Yes, sir.
And so it's based on weather. And so the kids will know.
10% does not drive us inside, does it?
No, it does
okay.
not. But anyway, I meant to mention that on my piece. So thank you for reminding me about graduation.
Mr. Carney? Your turn.
What hasn't been said? One thing I will report on is my extra little job, and that's with I'm on the board of directors for the Workman's Comp Fund. Beth, I didn't get our mod fire. Do you know what our mod number is?
No, I haven't received that number yet.
You haven't received it? Well, she would work on it. I thought she might have got it. Okay. But before I went down there for the meeting, we had, I think we had a few too many claims that shouldn't have. And I just hope that everybody, all the staff can make sure that they think safety of whatever they're doing. And it can be as simple as getting on a ladder on the top rung or putting your guard up on your mower when you're mowing, things like that. But it's really important because it affects how much we pay for a premium. So safety is really important, and we should be cognizant of what's going on around us at all times, especially in the classroom and the maintenance guys. Let me defer. I got something I want to say, but I'm kind of foggy right now.
All right, one alibi.
One alibi, yeah. Be less than 3 minutes.
Ms. Wells.
All right. So first off, with the end of the school year, I just want to say how proud I am of all of our students and their accomplishments over the year. Our annual state testing data is not an accurate measurement of our students' achievement and their goals or their growth and the job that our teachers are doing. Our students are so much more than a number. Teacher Appreciation Week. I hope all of you guys know it's not just lip service. I'm not just saying it. I truly mean it. I appreciate each and every one of you, not just our teachers, but our staff as well. Policy IF, in my opinion, is unnecessary, and it's just overreach and micromanagement, and I don't want to talk about it any further. We have a library manual which outlines everything that our policies should have and do, and it is all inclusive, and I don't feel that it's not being followed, and anything else is just unnecessary. I'm disappointed in us as a board. We keep adding obstacles and roadblocks to our teachers and staff. We need to give them tools and trust them to make the connections with the students to help them achieve their potential. Our actions continue to prevent this from happening. And then the last thing that I had, Ms. Anstein, you are brilliant with your words. I wish I could say a half of the things that you said, but you've summed up my thoughts and feelings 100% from a teacher perspective. I appreciate you so much. You have never taught any of my students, and I have such a huge love for you. So, then I think that's it. I'm done. Did you remember what you wanted to say, old man?
You just said it all.
Sorry.
Old man.
Sorry. Sorry, that was ageist, and I take that back. I retract it. I retract it. I apologize.
All right, Mr. Carney, do you have your alibi?
No. I'm mad now.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said it. I apologize.
Okay, after Mr. Powell, I'll ask one more time and then we'll go from there. Mr. Powell?
There's a lot of friction in our community right now. I think we all recognize that. But even with that friction, we've got to look at where our students are right now. You know, we're getting ready to go into graduation. And we have some amazing students that have been taught by amazing teachers. And they're going to go on, they're going to do some incredible things. And so I would hope that as we leave here, because we can have disagreements and we can figure out what we think is right with the community. That's what this is all about. But we cannot lose sight of the successes that our teachers are having in the classroom every day. And the result of that is the kids that you see coming out at the other end. And I have to agree with what was said earlier. You know, a statistic doesn't describe our kids. And I would also say that the statistics can lie. You know, when you look at our graduation rate for due course kids, it's in the upper 90s, 96, 97, when you take out the kids that we could count as at risk by the definitions. We've got to go after those kids. There's no question. But we can't lose sight of that there's a number of really great kids and great teachers out there. So I do appreciate the teachers. I mean, we all have challenges, and we've got to figure out how we meet those challenges. We're a community. I would only ask that we stay as a community. We don't have to be as divisive as we are right now. We work our way through that, and then we have to do the right thing for our kids. And that would be it. And then the last thing is, I think that as we go into this next year, I would appreciate it if we as a district would take a look at our use of technology in the classroom. And the reason why I'm concerned about it is when you look back at what we went through with COVID, I think we learned some pretty tough lessons that you can leverage technology, but you can't make that the relational connection that our kids have. And so I'm just curious. It's a curiosity question, but there's some value to seeing whether or not we're actually getting the one-on-one personal time that our kids really need. Because when they're out of the classroom, it's 100, in some cases 100%. So anyway, maybe we do something differently, but I'm not sure that we know what that looks like. And that's all.
Madam President,
You have your alibi?
Grandpa just remembered.
All right, Mr. Carney, your alibi?
Well, I guess that's one of the things I kind of get, my wife, when I come home every night and every day, she says, don't come in the house and say anything negative. The first thing should be something positive. And I kind of get tired of people coming up saying, oh, we're this percentile, that percentile. All I know is I shook about 280 hands the other night, kids that had 3.75 grade point averages or better. And that's the kind of thing that I like to dwell on. And, you know, these numbers and these people come up with, I mean, you can find any kind of number you want if you go on the internet. But anyway, I know reality. Reality was shaking those hands with kids with big smiles and knowing that they did well is all I need to see. I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. All right, so on my calendar, I have May as the month. Actually, it's the season of recognitions. And so it's one of the great things about our district is that we have recognitions for academics and athletics and band and JRTC. And we also, for our retirees, we get to recognize a lot of great things by our kids and our teachers. I apologize that we missed the Horizons Gala tonight, but that's another group of kids that are just doing amazing things out there. But they wouldn't be able to do those things without our teachers. So while this week might be Teacher Appreciation Week, I think every day that we have a student is thank you to a teacher, because you have reached out, you have touched their lives, and you've helped them get there where they are. Whether you're a teacher or a coach, admin staff, shoot, even custodians have an impact on our kids because they're there every day and they're part of their learning environment. I want you to reach out to all your teachers, not just the ones we have here right now. I'm pushing close to 40 since I graduated high school. Yes, I'm giving my age. But I still keep in touch with several of my teachers that are still around. So I want to say thank you to Doc Dantzler, Doc Stevens, Miss Weeks Brown, and Miss Hampson. Those are the returning ones of my senior year. They mean a lot to me, and I hope your teachers mean a lot to you, because I know all of our teachers and our staff mean a lot to our kids, and you mean a lot to us as a community. So thank you for what you do. Keep doing the good things and be good humans. And best of all, go Pioneers. It is 9:01.